Okay, let's talk a little bit about some bat catching stuff. Very, very tough to be a catcher. Not a lot of your kids on your team are going to want to catch. A couple of them are going to want to. It's terrifying. It can hurt. But if we teach them a couple things, we can put them in a good position to minimize the amount of solid, painful, hard contact on them by putting them simply in a position where they're not going to get hurt. So a couple things to keep in mind and not do. We don't want our kids holding a high target. Okay, strike zone is, top of the catcher's head down to the knees generally, and we don't want to present a high target. It might get in our field of vision, so we want to encourage our catchers to have a nice low target. Our knee height behind the plate is going to be about the same as the batter's knee height at home plate in the batter's box. So encourage your catcher to have a nice low target. Encourage your catcher to take their throwing hand and either tuck it directly behind their back, or some kids feel a little bit more comfortable tucking it in behind their knee. That's a good spot to be. We don't want a foul ball to go off of this hand. So we got a nice low target. We don't have a high target. We don't have this hand exposed. We got to tuck behind a little bit. It's a little scary being back here because that batter is going to start wielding that big old bat, and your catchers are going to want to back up a bunch. Don't let them back up too much. Encourage them to stay in there. The deeper your catcher goes, the tougher it's going to be for your umpire to call balls and strikes. So encourage your catcher to stay in there. Don't get too deep away from home plate because they're a little bit scared. You got to encourage them to stay in there as much as possible so you can give the umpire a chance to get us that call. We don't want our catchers framing pitches. Okay, framing pitches being the idea that a pitch is out of the strike zone and we know it, and we're trying to pull it back into the strike zone. You're going to make the umpire look bad, and they're not going to appreciate that. All you want to do is, on any pitch that's close enough to the strike zone, you want to stick that pitch. So if you know that the corner is here, but that pitch is coming in out here, and it might be close enough for the umpire to call it, all you want to do is, bam, just hold it right there and give the umpire a chance to call it. Don't hold it there for 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Now we're getting a little bit insulting. On the other corner, all we want to do is just hold it right there. Nope, we didn't get that call. No problem. Okay? Toss the ball back to your pitcher. Don't lob the ball to the pitcher. Make a good throw back to your pitcher. Pitcher's working just as hard as the catcher's working, and it's the worst for a pitcher to have to scramble to catch a ball that came from their catcher 45, 50 feet away. So as a catcher, we want to either, drop down onto a knee and make a good solid throw, or after each received baseball, hop up and make a good solid throw. One last thing, we don't want our catchers at a young age to set up on the corners. I mean, we can simply look at this home plate and we can draw a line here, we can draw a line here, and now we've got 3 separate sections that the pitch is potentially going to come in. Obviously, we want to stay out of the middle as much as possible, but sometimes young catchers want to be super big league and set up right on that corner, which is going to be hard for our pitcher. So do encourage your catcher, if at all possible, with a pitcher that has the ability to throw strikes a little bit. Maybe we're staying center, but maybe we're moving over just a little bit to encourage a pitch on the outer or inner half, or just a little bit to encourage a pitch on this outer or inner half. Setting up way out here on the corner is going to result in that pitcher either coming back to the middle, throwing pitches down the middle, or missing really, really wide. So we don't want to always stay centered. We want to give our pitcher a chance to work the ball around home plate, but we don't want to set up on corners. We want to think of home plate as being in thirds, and we're either on the inner third or the outer third. We're not stretching out to the corners, not yet. So a simple receiving drill you can do with any of your catchers is just to kind of feed some balls at them, not too far underhand, nice line drive, nothing on a lob. We don't want to be thrown from far away because then there's a lot that they got to kind of take into consideration. But if we can be 8, 10, 15 feet maybe in front of them, and we can just fire underhand balls at them, we give them an opportunity to understand the firmness with which they have to catch the baseball. So what we can do is we can have them set up in their primary or secondary. We'll go over primary and secondary in a second, but we can get them to set up, and all they're really going to work on is having that nice low target, keeping that hand tucked away either behind the back or behind the leg, and all they're really thinking about is wherever that pitch comes in, bam, being firm with it, bam, being firm with it, bam, being firm with it, okay? We want, as much as possible, to keep our thumb under the baseball. The second we drop our fingers down and catch a ball like this, umpire's going to assume it was low, and it's probably going to be a ball. Anything that we can keep our thumb under it's going to look more like a strike. We can present it more as a strike. Anything that comes out to this side and our thumb goes up, it's going to seem like it's wide. Anything on this side, the second we start to turn our glove over, it's going to seem like it's wide. So as much as we can, we're always trying to get our catcher to understand that they got to keep their thumb under the baseball as much as possible. And this is a progression thing. You can work with a kid on just catching one and holding it and dropping it off to the side and discussing what was good or what was bad. It can be catch one, drop it, catch another one, drop it. It can turn into rapid fire, 2 in a row, 4 in a row, 5 in a row, an entire bucket to the point where they're just bam, 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 bam. You as the coach can kind of work your way around the horn from corner to corner, and they can get a lot of good work at understanding the process of the pitch is coming into me, and it's simply my job to catch anything that's close, hold it there for a second or two to give that umpire a chance to either make the call for a ball or a strike. Now, our primary position for our catchers and our secondary position. Primary is where there's no chance that anybody's going to run on us anywhere. So there's nobody on base generally in primary. Secondary position is when there are runners on base and somebody might steal. There's also one weird situation where there's nobody on base, but we have to get into our secondary. We'll talk about that in a second. So for our primary, what we want our kids to be doing, squatting down low as they can, hips really low. For a lot of kids, that means heel down. Some kids need to be up on their toes. It's not really all that important. What's most important is that they're down, down, down as much as they can. Glove is nice and low. Elbow isn't tucked under our knee. Elbow isn't too wide. They're in a position where their arm can kind of move freely to wherever the pitch is. Okay, this is primary. We're really, really low. We're giving the umpire a good chance to see over top of us and make a call on a pitch that could be a strike. Batter gets 2 strikes on them. Runner is on first, runner is on second, whatever the situation might be, in case somebody runs. So we got 2 strikes on this batter, swing and a miss, and we don't catch it. We got to be a little bit more active. Runner on first, and they might steal. We got to be a little bit more active. So we can't be so low, but also we can't be too high cheating and we're bent over like this. So the big difference between primary and secondary. Primary, our feet are maybe a little bit narrower, and we're a little bit lower. Secondary, our feet are a little wider, and all of a sudden our hips are a little higher because we might have to spring to it. Okay, so similar to the drill that I just spoke about in terms of receiving, we can receive in primary. We can also receive in secondary. Maybe in secondary we're not so head on. Maybe in secondary we're a little bit staggered because we're going to have to make a move a little bit quicker, but we don't want to be too staggered because now all of a sudden, in case something's in the dirt, we might have a tendency to do this, or we're not going to be able to get back around to block the baseball. So primary is very head on. Secondary is a little bit staggered. Primary is a little narrower. Secondary is a little wider, and you're a little bit more standing up with your hips a little higher so you can spring to if you have to. Now, good little exercises that we can do in our secondary is feeding balls to kids and having them work through a transfer in order to get ready to make a throw. Let me explain a little bit about what I mean with that. A lot of kids, they don't have enough gusto or strength to get the ball to second base. So what you'll notice a lot of kids do, he's going, and they end up catching the ball, and with that glove side leg, they'll take a step, and then they'll transfer, and then they'll take another 2 steps. While our catcher is taking those 1, 2, 3 steps, that base runner is getting safer and safer and safer by the moment. So we got to try to encourage kids to cut it down to just 2 steps. Anything that is at them or a little bit on their glove side, hopefully, is going to be that throwing leg moving first. So he's going. It's a catch, and this leg is going to move across to come up here ready to throw. Anything that's down the middle, we're not going to move across so much. We're going to try to gain some ground and move forward a little bit. Anything that's on our throwing arm side, and this is the toughest one, and it's going to be really, really hard for a lot of young kids because they just don't have the arm strength. Anything that's on the throwing arm side, this side of the plate, it can hopefully be just a subtle turn into 1 step to make a throw. Very, very challenging for a catcher to learn how to throw out runners because it has a lot to do with being real specific with how your feet work. And a lot of kids are going to need or want extra little bit of time to do that dreaded 1, 2, 3 step to then unload. Similar to how infielders operate, catchers don't want to be winding up down here. So the progression of this exercise that you can do with a lot of your catchers, it can start with catching the ball and holding it where it is, thinking about the pattern of your feet. This one was on my glove side, so it's going to be a little bit of a move this way to then transfer and get ready to make my throw. Or you can toss it straight at them, in which case they stick and hold right there. They're aware of what they're going to do. Then they step up to make that throw. And again, the hardest one, anything on this side, where it's hopefully just a one step over to here, and they come up to make their throw. That transfer for a catcher. We don't want anything coming down, all right? All we really want with our catcher is to think a little bit more bow and arrow. Hopefully, because our posture is good, our hips are back, our butt is down, and our chest is a little bit forward. Hopefully, everything that we receive feels like it's about shoulder height. So the idea is out of our glove, straight across the line of our shoulders. The more your catcher reaches out, the more they're going to have to bring it back in. So with a runner on, or with a situation where somebody might be going, we really want to encourage our catcher to not reach out too much to get the baseball sooner. As much as in their head that might feel like the most intuitive thing, I want to get the ball as fast as I can. It's going to be quicker if they can let the ball travel. So that's another part of this exercise. Don't reach out, let it come. Hold it where it is, get the feet right. Break your hands shoulder height, bow and arrow. And if they get good at it, the progression eventually can be you just firing a toss, and they're here, they read which part of the plate it's on, and then they move their feet appropriately, and they get right into a throw.